rise, sulle asma, double engine ka
Hello and welcome. You're watching Newsx and I'm Megha Sharma, and we are on our exclusive coverage of President Putin, who is in India. He has arrived just a short while ago, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is hosting him at his official residence at the 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. Let's quickly get in my panelists, because tomorrow is going to be chock-a-block with a number of events that will begin 11 a.m. onwards. Of course, with the ceremonial welcome that will take place at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, he will be headed to the Rajghat for the wreath-laying ceremony. Then he heads to the Hyderabad House, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Putin will be holding a bilateral talk. There are going to be about 20 plus of those documents that are going to be signed in a number of fields, including infrastructure, including mobility, talking about trade and investment between both countries as well. Arctic shipbuilding is one of the key areas that has been the focal point, and a number of spokespersons from both countries have been talking about it at length. And then, of course, there are going to be the joint statements that are going to be released by both leaders tomorrow in the afternoon. Not to mention the India-Russia Business Forum that takes place tomorrow at the Bharat Mandapam as well on the sidelines. Let's get in Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev into the conversation. Ambassador Sachdev, what are the key expectations? There is already a template that has been built. Briefing the public, briefing the media, both the sides have spoken about what is important: trade, investment, talking about reducing the deficit that India has with India. But the larger picture, what is it that is expected from this meeting? What is it going to achieve?
Thank you, Megha. You've asked a short but very pointed question, and it's not easy to answer. But let me try and give my take. I believe that both sides are going to together attempt to insulate the current buoyancy in their relationship from the vicissitudes around us, be it Ukraine war, be it tariffs, be it other issues. I think what we have seen that post-COVID, we have had a certain spurt in bilateral trade, and defense cooperation has continued, nuclear power cooperation has continued. Meanwhile, Ukraine war and accompanying 10,000 plus sanctions on Russia by the Western powers have changed the dynamic of Russia's overseas engagements. Much of it has suffered, particularly after Lukoil and Rosneft were sanctioned last month. And the two sides here would like to continue building up a buoyant relationship, find new drivers, insulate the drivers that we have from various sort of maledictions, and carry on. And that is what this summit is all about. It combines bilateralism with a certain overlap with multilateral issues, global issues, that has never happened in the bilateral ties before. Thank you.
Okay. I also have with me Professor Madhav Nalapat, and Professor Nalapat, the dark clouds of tariffs continue to hover over this relationship, particularly with the reduced percentage of oil that is now being imported by Indian companies. This was also spoken by the MEA, saying that, the Indian companies have reduced purchasing Russian oil, but keeping in mind the way the market reacts, including tariffs that cannot be discounted, that cannot be overlooked. And to see that with President Putin, there are representatives of a number of oil companies, including Rosneft, which has been heavily tariffed by the United States of America. How do you think India and Russia are going to navigate this difficult problem?
Well, look, the first point is that President Putin has been welcomed by no less from the person from the US than President Trump himself in Alaska. And Trump has sent two of his most trusted people, Steve Witkoff and his own son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to Moscow to negotiate with Putin. So the fact of the matter is that today, let me be honest with you, Russia has again found its feet in the global order. There has been a strong effort by some European countries which are obsessed with this Europe only focus, and this Ukraine must be preserved, otherwise Europe will fall, which is absurd nonsense. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Did Western Europe fall? Not at all. Nothing happened. But now what's happening is US is collecting money for selling weapons to EU, and EU taxpayers are paying the bill, and they're getting fed up, increasingly fed up. So the point is, President Putin is a very welcome visitor to India. Russia has definitely been a time-tested friend. As you know, we have a special and privileged relationship. But I think one thing that the Prime Minister can ask and request his old friend, President Putin, is that the payment for this, the huge amount of Russian oil and gas imports, and should be made not in a basket of currencies where the Chinese RMB is dominating, but in rupees and rubles. I think rupee-ruble trade was very much there in the past. It has served both countries well, and I do believe that it's time to revive the rupee-ruble trade so that Russia gets paid in rupees and we get paid in rubles, and we buy from each other. So I think that's important. And I think from the point of view of India, India is a time-tested relationship. It's a very good relationship. And the relationship between Prime Minister Modi and Putin are very close, which is one reason why the Prime Minister himself was on hand at the airport and took him away to his own private residence, not to host a dinner for him, where I'm very certain that apart from the public announcements, some very sensitive matters are going to be discussed by the two leaders. Thank you, Megha.
Raymond Vickery is also on the show with me. Raymond, how is the US administration viewing this development, the arrival of President Putin here in India?
Well, thanks very much for having me. It seems to me that the building of peace and prosperity in the world requires strategy, it requires partners, and it requires principles. As Professor Nalapat has pointed out many times, the major geopolitical threat to India is from China. Somehow, India has convinced itself that it can have Russia and that somehow Russia will help in this major threat from China. I would think that India has much more in common with the democracies of the world, including the United States and including Europe, Japan, and so forth, than it does with Russia. If India thinks that it will be better off economically, strategically, or in terms of its overall values and principles with Russia, it seems to me it is a time for reassessment. Unfortunately, President Trump has driven India further into the arms of Russia by the administration's transactional approach. One would hope that we would get back to a situation that we've had over the past 30 years which is moving away from estrangement between India and the U.S. and toward a closer relationship as natural partners against
I'll just quickly interrupt you, sir. We're getting information now that President Putin has, in fact, departed from Prime Minister Modi's residence now. So which means that private dinner that had been organized by Prime Minister for President Putin is now over. He is headed back to his hotel at ITC Moria. So that part of today's engagement now done. Tomorrow, like I said, are going to be a slew of engagements that he will be taking part in 11 a.m. onwards. Yes, Raymond Vickery, please continue with your thought.
Well, as I was saying, it seems to me that India has much more in common with the democracies of the world, Western Europe, United States, Japan, than it does with Russia. Unfortunately, the transactional approach rather than a relationship approach, which has been adopted by the Trump administration, has made it more and more difficult for India to resume the path toward partnership with democracies.
Okay.
That having said, one hopes that on both sides there will be an assessment which will allow us to go forward, but that is by no means assured.
General Dhruv Katoch, do you really think the tariff war that has been waged by US President Donald Trump on India has pushed India further into Russia's arms? Or do you think India right now is also sort of pausing and contemplating, observing how things are vis-a-vis India-US trade relations? That trade pact is yet to be signed. It is being heavily negotiated for months together for now, for the last, like I said, for the last so many months. And here we have new opportunities by way of defense pacts that are being proposed, talking about reducing India's trade deficit with Russia, which is heavily favoring Russia at this point of time, and therefore we see this massive business delegation that Putin has brought along with him, and this India Business Forum, a 2-day India Business Forum that is taking place, that has been organized jointly by FICCI and by the Russia Business Forum, which is called Ross Congress. So is India at this point of time walking a tightrope?
Thank you, Megha. Yes, India is certainly walking a tightrope, but statements to say that is India being thrown into this camp or that camp? I really don't think that works out. India is not a football or something that they can throw us around. We are players in our own right, and India will do whatever is necessary in its self-interest. That is the first point. Second point, when Mr. Raymond Vickery, you made that point. About in the event of hostilities between India and China, will Russia support us? I don't think India is looking at any form of support from anybody in the event of hostilities with China, either from the United States or from Russia. We will handle our own affairs. I think that point needs to be made very clear. If there is a fight on the higher Himalayas, we'll do it. We'll handle whatever opposition is our side. I don't expect either the Americans coming in to support India or the Russians. We'll do it ourselves. But coming down to this, this moot point, I think there are very serious concerns about trade. Let us make no mistakes about that. With Russia, we are importing a huge quantum of oil. When we talk about $68 billion is the trade, our exports are just 5 billion and the imports are 63 billion.
Yeah.
And there is beyond a certain point, you can't really deal in rupees and rubles, because what is Russia going to do with all those rupees, which keep accumulating over the years? Then unless we can handle those sort of issues, I think it'll be very difficult to go ahead. With the Americans, again, that is our market. a very large part of our exports go to the US. So there'll certainly be a challenge there, and we want that trade deal to go through. Now, I think we will negotiate this. I see no reason why India cannot have a friendly relationship with Russia, from whom we have very strategic defense relationships, and also a friendly relationship with the United States. I don't. It doesn't appear contradictory to me. It is something which is workable, which is doable, and is something which we will do.
Okay.
With the Americans, we are also, as of now, we are, a large number of defense imports are taking place from the US. But the US always puts some spokes in the wheel at some time, for the engines for LCA, which was supposed to come, but which keep getting delayed and with conditions. Now, stuff like that won't work. But ultimately, I think India is a player in its own right. We will do what is in our national interest, whether we buy oil from Russia or from elsewhere, that we will see. But I don't think we will be dictated to by any third power or any other power as to what we should do or how we should run our foreign policy. We are quite capable and competent of running our own affairs, and we don't want other people to start interfering in what India is doing. Megha.
Okay. Hindu, your point of view, like while we have rolled out the red carpet for President Putin, it's true the other way around as well, because this is perhaps one of the largest delegations, business delegations, that President Putin has traveled with to India. And I think the front and center of all communication that has been had by both sides is about how to increase Indian investments into Russia, how to balance that trade deficit that India continues to have with Russia. There is agricultural sector that has been brought into prime focus, textiles, talking about marine products, also talking about skilled and semi-skilled Indian workers that will travel to Russia potentially seeking job opportunities because of the requirement that Russia has when it comes to its human resources. Do you think moving ahead, India is likely to call the shots in terms of reducing that trade deficit, that $63 billion versus $5 billion in exports that India does, to maybe like a 40-30 in the near future?
I think these things are easier said than done, and in such relationships, nobody really calls the shots, as it were. It depends from time to time as the relationship evolves. Both parties may have different perspectives. I think one of the things to zoom out and note here, Megha, is that this is probably one of the key areas of the world where President Putin finds such a welcome, such a warm welcome. There aren't that many places in the world where he can actually, with confidence, expect such a warm welcome. And this, of course, is a byproduct of long-standing ties, faith between the governments, and so on and so forth. I think we should ask two questions which are critical. Number one, how can we, in a sense, and this is the question you were also asking and some other speakers were saying, in a sense, balance the trade in somewhat. I don't think in the near future we will be able to balance it. One of the sectors where we are pushing hard for Russia to buy more is, of course, pharma. And I think we can make a dent there, but we won't come anywhere close to balancing anything. We will continue to, as long as we are dependent on fossil fuels, we will be largely dependent on a significant chunk of our fossil fuels coming from Russia, considering what's happening in Iran, what's happening in Venezuela, and so on and so forth. The other question to ask is to zoom out and ask, as we ask the question, are we going to buy the Sukhoi 57? I think the question is very much out there. We don't have a clear answer to that yet, because we are very, very keen to develop our own military-industrial complex. So can the Russians help us develop our military-industrial complex? Well, of course, in their overall interest, because if we become a big military player, their markets go. And the final question to ask is, the size of the Russian economy means that we don't, going forward, we do not see, or most people do not see, a rapid expansion of that economy. So that market will always remain small for us. And therefore, how much of that market will be able to deliver to us, including in future advanced technology, is a question we should all ask. certainly I'm sure people in Raisina Hill are asking.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, all of you. I'll ask you to stay back because I'm taking a short break. Come right back. We'll give you continuous updates of this big high-profile visit of President Putin to India. Stay tuned.